Hello, welcome back to the channel, my homecoming family. If you are new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications, because trust me, after today's episode, you do not want to miss what is coming next. We have got so much to unpack today, so let's not waste any more time. Grab your tea, get comfortable, and let's get right into it. Okay, so let's start with the biggest storyline of the episode, and that is Shobane. My people, I do not even know where to begin with this man. Watching this organ harvesting storyline unfold has genuinely been painful to sit through, and not painful in a boring way, painful in a "why would you do this" kind of way. I know some viewers online have been saying that organ harvesting storylines happen in real life, and yes, that is true, but there is a big difference between reading about something like that in the news and watching it happen to characters you have grown to care about over the years. What makes this even harder to watch is how it involves Nurse Bane, who keeps bringing more and more patients that need to be operated on. At this point, it does not even feel random anymore. It feels calculated. It feels like there is a bigger network at play here, and Shobane is right at the center of it, whether he wants to admit it to himself or not. Now here is the thing that really gets me. Shobane is not just some random criminal off the street. This man is a respected surgeon. People trust him with their lives, literally. And yet here he is, using that trust, using that white coat, to run something so dark behind the scenes. I keep asking myself, how does someone with that much training, that much responsibility, end up here? Was it greed? Was it desperation? Or has he simply lost touch with who he used to be? And can we talk about the fact that we can only really rely on Zethu at this point to get to the bottom of this? Zethu seems to be the only one close enough to the situation, and brave enough, to actually start asking the hard questions. I have a feeling that in the coming episodes, Zethu is going to dig deeper, and honestly, I think what she finds is going to shock even her. Let's not forget, this is not the first time Shobane has been in trouble. Remember when he was released alongside Vousy, and neither of them ended up being formally charged with anything. At the time, I remember thinking, okay, maybe that chapter is closed, maybe they both learned their lesson. But watching today's episode, I am starting to think that Shobane walking away without consequences back then was actually the worst thing that could have happened, because now look where we are. A man cannot just walk free after being connected to something as serious as human organ trafficking and then think there will never be a reckoning. Every choice has consequences, and I have a strong feeling the writers are building up to a moment where Shobane finally has to face what he has done, and there will be no clever lawyer, no convenient loophole, that can save him this time. What really troubles me the most in this whole storyline is how deep Shobane has allowed himself to sink. This is not a small mistake anymore. This is not one bad decision made in a moment of weakness. This is a pattern. This is a system he has built, or at least allowed himself to become part of, and it is starting to swallow him whole. I genuinely believe that if this investigation continues the way it is going, Shobane is going to find himself completely alone, with no one left to protect him, not even the people who once called him family. Moving on, let's talk about Fiso and Kana, because oh my goodness, this storyline is giving me a headache in the best and worst way possible. So it seems like Fiso has decided that Kana needs more of him around, if you know what I mean. There is definitely some kind of connection brewing there, but here is my issue with it. Kana was recently scammed, and as far as I can tell, she has not even reported this crime to the police yet. My question is simple. Why not? If something like that happened to me, the police station would be my very first stop, not a budding romance with someone new. I have to be honest, I am struggling to fully believe in this love connection between Fiso and Kana right now, mainly because of the timing. Kana has just been through something traumatic, financially and emotionally, and instead of dealing with that head on, it feels like she is being swept up into something new without any real closure from what just happened to her. That is not healthy, and honestly, I worry that this new connection is being used as a distraction rather than something built on a solid foundation. And speaking of money troubles, my people, this episode is absolutely dripping with financial drama. Let's talk about the situation at the clinic first. So apparently funds were released for resources, real resources, things the clinic desperately needs. And what happens? Instead of getting proper equipment, instead of getting what was actually needed, someone decides that a motorbike is going to somehow function as an ambulance. A motorbike. I could not believe what I was watching. When Matron found out about this, her reaction said it all. She looked genuinely disappointed, and honestly, who would not be? She trusted that the money would be used responsibly, and instead it feels like it has been completely mismanaged, maybe even misused entirely. This whole thing ties back into a bigger theme I am noticing in this season, which is how people in positions of responsibility keep failing the people who trust them. Whether it is Shobane failing his patients, or whoever is responsible for this clinic budget failing the community that depends on that ambulance, there is a pattern here of trust being broken again and again. Now let's get into Vousy, because my goodness, this man is acting reckless. It really does feel like Vousy has been drinking again, and when I say that, I do not say it lightly. His behavior in this episode reads as someone who is not thinking clearly, someone who is being driven by something bigger than himself. There is a demand for money involving Vousy, tied to a child who needs to be taken care of, and as his guardian, that responsibility falls squarely on his shoulders. But instead of handling it like a responsible adult, Vousy seems to be spiraling, and it is genuinely concerning to watch. There is also a suggestion that help might need to be sought from the station commander regarding Vousy's behavior, and if that happens, we could be looking at an arrest in his future. If Vousy keeps getting closer and closer to Nkonyana's situation while behaving this recklessly, I do not think that is going to end well for either of them. Namalanga, for one, does not seem convinced that Nkonyana is thinking clearly about money right now, and honestly, after everything we have seen in this episode, I cannot say I disagree with her. There is real concern brewing that this money situation is going to cause a serious falling out between multiple characters. Nkonyana wants to take her share and put it into some kind of investment or savings plan, but there is resistance from those around her, people who feel she is not being smart about how she handles it. When money like this is involved, and when trust is already this fragile, it rarely ends peacefully. I would not be surprised if we see a full-blown fight over this money in the next few episodes. Now let's shift over to the Hongwin family, because Zethu's father, Mr. Hongwin, is really showing his true colors in this episode, and not in a good way. It is becoming painfully clear that he has been scamming his own wife, manipulating her, and honestly, tricking her out of things she deserves. And now, after everything, his wife wants to try and save whatever money is left, which honestly, who could blame her? What struck me the most in this part of the episode is just how much pain is hidden behind closed doors in that household. From the outside, the Hongwin family might look put together, respectable even, but behind the scenes there is manipulation, there is dishonesty, and there is a wife who is clearly done being taken advantage of. She wants all of the money that is rightfully owed to her, and honestly, I am fully behind her on this. It is about time someone in that family stood up for themselves. This storyline also feels like it mirrors what is happening elsewhere in the show, where financial control is being used as a weapon against the people who trust these men the most. Whether it is Mr. Hongwin manipulating his wife, or Vousy mishandling money that belongs to a child in his care, there is a running theme this season about how easily trust can be broken when money enters the picture. Let's talk about what is happening at the Schwabi household, because this storyline broke my heart a little bit, if I am being honest. Onkobo, after everything, has decided to chase her own family member out of the house. That alone tells you how bad things have gotten. Nobody makes a decision like that lightly. When someone tells a family member, "I do not want to see you here anymore," that is not a small disagreement, that is the result of months, maybe even years, of built-up tension finally boiling over. And then we find out that there was a moment where a hand was almost raised against his wife. Now, thankfully, nothing actually happened, but my goodness, the fact that it even got that close is deeply concerning. You cannot just brush something like that off as almost happening. The thought alone, the fact that things escalated to that point, tells you everything you need to know about how unstable that household has become. There is no excuse, none whatsoever, for a man to even get to the point of raising his hand toward his wife, first place or not. Because of this, Nkobo was forced to go and sleep in the salon instead of in her own home, which honestly is heartbreaking to watch. No one should feel unsafe or unwelcome in their own house, and yet here we are. Then there is the whole situation with Kondiko, and let me tell you, this child is testing everyone's patience. There was an attempt to discipline him, and from what I understand, he ended up getting a bit of a spanking because of his behavior. But at this point, it really does feel like Kondiko is one of those children where no matter what you try, nothing seems to get through to him. It is exhausting to watch, and I genuinely feel for everyone in that household who is trying their best to reach him and keep coming up empty. I am hoping that soon, the family realizes that Kondiko and Schwabi's current living situation simply cannot continue under the same roof, at least not without some serious changes. Nkobo wants him to go back to living with his father, since after all, Kondiko is his child, and honestly, that might be the healthiest option for everyone involved right now, even if it is a painful decision to make. And finally, let's talk about the emotional core of this episode, which is the heartbreak between Zethu and Shobain. This is honestly such a layered storyline because on one hand, we are watching Shobane spiral into criminal activity with this organ harvesting scandal, but on the other hand, we are also watching him deal with real, raw heartbreak after Zethu refused to marry him and ran out of the church. I have seen a lot of viewers online trying to place blame here, some saying it is Matron's fault for how Shobane was raised when it comes to relationships, others saying Zethu's behavior has been confusing, moving from one moment to the next without ever really settling. And honestly, I do not think I want to fully excuse Zethu's behavior either. If she truly did not want to move forward with the marriage, there were kinder, more honest ways to handle that than leaving him standing at the altar in front of everyone. That said, watching Shobane's reaction to this heartbreak has been genuinely difficult. This does seem to be the first time in his life that he is experiencing real heartbreak like this, and it is clearly affecting how he is coping. We see him turning to alcohol, drowning himself in it, and then showing up to work in that state, which, given everything else going on with him, is a recipe for disaster. A man who is already making questionable decisions professionally does not need the added weight of emotional devastation clouding his judgment even further. Zethu, for her part, does seem to want another chance to make things right with Shobane, or at the very least, to have an honest conversation about where things stand between them. Whether Shobane is even in a place emotionally to hear her out right now is a completely different question. Between the heartbreak and everything happening with the organ harvesting investigation, I genuinely do not know how much more this man can take before something breaks completely. Before I get into my final thoughts, I do want to take a moment to talk about where I think all of these storylines are heading, because I think it is important to look at the bigger picture here instead of just reacting to each scene as it happens. Starting with Shobane, I genuinely believe we are heading towards some kind of major exposure. The show has spent so much time building up Zethu as the one person close enough to the situation to start asking real questions, and in storytelling, that kind of setup really goes nowhere. I think in the next few episodes, we are going to see Zethu uncover something that changes everything, maybe even something that implicates people beyond just Shobane. This could be bigger than one rogue surgeon. This could be an entire operation, and if that is the case, then the fallout is going to be massive, not just for Shobane but for the hospital, for matron, and for everyone connected to that clinic. As for Vousy, I do not think his story is going to end well if he continues down this path. The signs are all there, the reckless behavior, the drinking, the desperate demands for money. When a character starts behaving like this on a soap opera, it is usually building toward either an arrest, a major confrontation, or in the worst case, some kind of tragedy. I would not be surprised if the station commander does get involved sooner rather than later, and if that happens, it could also drag Kana further into a mess she is already struggling to handle. Speaking of Kana, I really hope the show gives her a moment to actually report what happened to her. It feels strange that we have not seen that yet, and I think once she finally does go to the police, it is going to open up a whole new can of worms, especially if it turns out the person who scammed her is connected to someone else in her life. That is usually how these storylines go. The scammer is really a total stranger. There is almost always a twist waiting. For the Hongwin family, I think Zethu's mother finally standing up for herself financially is going to be a turning point in that household. It might not be an easy road, and Mr. Hongwin does not strike me as someone who is going to give up control without a fight, but I do believe this is the beginning of her taking her power back, and honestly, it is about time. And for the Onkobo family, I really think Kondikul moving back in with his father is inevitable at this point. The tension in that house has reached a boiling point, and I do not see how they continue living under one roof without something worse happening. Sometimes the healthiest thing for a family is distance, at least for a while, and I think the writers are building toward exactly that. So to wrap things up, my people, this episode really did live up to its title. Shobane truly is in it deep, and after everything we saw today, I do not believe there is any going back for him now. Between the organ harvesting scandal closing in around him and the heartbreak he is drowning himself in, this man is standing at the edge of a complete downfall, and honestly, I think the writers are setting up something big for the episodes ahead. We also cannot ignore everything happening around him. Vousy's reckless behavior, the money troubles brewing between Kana and the people around her, the disaster over at the clinic with that so-called ambulance, the heartbreak in the Hongwin household, and the tension boiling over in the Onkobo family. This episode really did give us a lot to sit with, and I have a feeling next week is going to bring even more consequences for almost everyone involved. What did you all think about today's episode? Do you think Zethu is going to succeed in exposing what Shobane has really been up to? Do you believe Fiso and Kana actually have a real chance at something genuine, or is this just going to end in more heartbreak? And honestly, what do you think should happen with Kondikul at this point? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments section below. I always love reading what you all have to say. If you enjoyed this review, please do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss an upload. I will see you all in the next review. Until then, take care of yourselves, and I will catch you soon.